With much ado, next up, we've got Glyn Roberts from Vention on mitigating the hidden risks of emerging tools. So welcome, Glyn.
Apologies. All right then. Yeah, great to be here. Here I'm talking today about protecting innovation, mitigating the risks of hidden tools. A little bit about me. I'm Glyn Roberts. I'm the CTO of Digital Solutions at Vention. I've got about 20 years of experience working in industry, and I've worked in leadership positions across the UK and Europe. I'm a speaker and a London mixer host for CTOCraft. And at Vention, with my day job, we're an agency, 3,000 plus engineers based across 12 countries in Europe, Asia, and the US. So early last year, I was asked, do we need to be concerned about AI tools being used by our teams? My response was, nah, we're good. We've got strong ISO policies, we've got regular required training and assessment for all of our staff. I felt so confident with the ISO 27001, so we've got data classification policies, information security policies, data privacy awareness materials, plus loads more. Obviously, most of us have got 27001. You expect that. Maybe famous last words. Literally the following week, I started noticing things. Meeting summarizers being added to our video calls. Teams suddenly turning things around a lot faster than they were before. And improved-ish content. And when I say improved-ish, I'll start reading some content. Amazing, they've really stepped up the game. But then like a couple of paragraphs in, it starts feeling more like a campfire story. Now I need to go look at this. I need to find out what people are actually doing. Because we're a large organization, it's hard for me to get a true feel for what's really going on. So I started off with a survey, which is how we normally do this. The key question is, what AI tools are you currently using for work? And this was back in right at the beginning of last year. Along with some other questions like how well do you understand AI, how excited are you about it? And obviously I needed honest answers. I needed it, I allowed it to be anonymous. I needed it separated by department, so I knew which department I needed to be focusing on most. And also highlighted there are no wrong answers. So let's have a quick look at the results. After grouping all the AI tools that each department had submitted, saying they're using, we have a unique total per department, and this is what we got. As a disclaimer, we are an agency, so we use a lot of the tools that our clients use, of course. And if you haven't done this with your teams yet, if you've never looked at this, it's probably a lot higher numbers than these, because there's so many more tools that got released last year. But from this point for us, delivery, we're using 28 tools, management, we're using 26. Sales, 18, marketing, 10, 4 for legal, which is very surprising considering how difficult, if anyone's got an internal legal team, how difficult it is to incorporate anything. They're actually using 4, which was interesting. They did review this deck before I submitted it through to CTOCraft, so I just want to clarify, they were only using public data. But when actually looking at their actual use case, they could have actually gone further. So obviously they're very aware of the data protection rules in place, so therefore they're actually overly cautious, from my opinion. And looking at the tools that the teams are actually using, a lot of the expected tools, ChatGPT, GitHub Copilot, and interestingly, there was a lot of crossover between the departments. So, ChatGPT was heavily used across multiple, along with other tools like Grammarly. And also, because we are based in 12 different countries, a lot of tools cropped up that I'd never even come across, which is super interesting. So just like in the Western cultures, we're very focused, we're very heavily advertised with certain AI tools. In other locations like Uzbekistan, there's some different tools out there for them. So it's quite interesting to see what came up from that. So, great news. We have a lot of interest in innovation and improving the tools that we use for work in our business. But how on earth do we actually manage this? How do we strike the balance between actually keeping that innovation and freedom for the team and the responsible risk management that obviously we have to do as a business? So firstly, I tried to clarify what do I actually care about. So what is happening to our data, as some data that we have is sensitive, of course, be it internal data or even potentially client data. There's things like cross-border data transfer to always watch out for, and obviously storing and process. We need to understand the risks and compliance and make sure that we're using this correctly. So compliance pitfalls like GDPR, HIPAA compliance, or any other industry-specific regulations. And trust erosion as well. Obviously, if any of these tools that we use suddenly have a breach, that's going to be incredibly embarrassing. I can imagine if ChatGPT had a breach, there's a lot of companies that would be very embarrassed of what their staff have been throwing into these things. And obviously, again, keeping the innovation for the company. So firstly, I want to highlight some bad practices that exist in the AI industry. So remember when the pandemic hit, Zoom suddenly became the most popular tool for video conferencing. And they achieved that by being super easy to use. Essentially, it was always on. And if you had a Mac machine, essentially even installed a web server, where if you even uninstalled Zoom, the web server still remained on your machine. These same issues exist with AI. Essentially, Read AI is the example I want to give. Does anyone in the room actually use Read AI as a meeting summarizer? No hands up. Obviously, you are excellent, and you always read privacy policies. I don't believe you, but it's fine. But Read AI is an AI co-pilot for wherever you work, making your meetings, emails, and messages more productive with summaries, content discovery, and recommendations. Sounds amazing. Why wouldn't we want that? But essentially, one of the biggest issues we had, the reason why Read AI actually started being utilized in a few members of staff in our business is because our clients started using it. And they'd start recording the meeting, creating a transcript, and to read the transcript, you need to install the software. So firstly, they install the software, and the cursor, the default, it installs everywhere on their machine. So it then attaches itself to every meeting that that person is invited to, whether they attend or not. So essentially, suddenly we're having like some large group meetings would have 3 or 4 of like meeting summarizers suddenly ask for permission to read. And it only takes one person in the meeting to actually click accept, and then suddenly that tool is now reading everything that's been said. And another hard thing is, as I'll go through the privacy terms in a second, it's very hard to install. So we made this prohibited inside our business. And when we told staff to install it, they say we did, but their meeting summarizer was still getting asked to join our meetings. So it's very hard to remove it. And yeah, essentially the terms of service are terrible. For those of you that love reading terms of service, fantastic. And I think this is something we're going to have to do a lot more inside our businesses. A few of the terms of service quotes that they have: royalty-free worldwide license to use, reproduce, or analyze user content, make available users' data to a wide range of third parties. It doesn't state which third parties, and stores your audio and video information for up to 2 years. So if I'm just talking with my mates, this is great. I'll have action lists and summaries of conversations with my friends, but in a business, I'm definitely not comfortable doing this. So essentially, we're now in a position where we have to be incredibly cautious about the bad practices of what these terms and conditions do. Obviously, everyone's racing to try and be the key player, and therefore the more data they have, the more power they're going to be to adapt and obviously meet our needs. And obviously right now, AI, big term that's always been, that's everywhere, and it's just been added into our products. We all want AI, right? So Microsoft 365, everybody knows, the license has now increased because you now get Copilot with it. And the only way to not get Copilot with it is to cancel the subscription. Then it gives you the old version without it. Notion, Slack, Figma, these are all adding AI capabilities already. Look, the tools are amazing. When that Notion added, it's like, oh, that's amazing. It summarizes a massive long document for me. That's fantastic. And obviously with this AI race underway, our data is now being used for more things. All the SaaS products that we're using are, being using AI just automatically, so there's a high risk of exposure. So just because you approved the tool 3-4 years ago, that's great for the business. As AI has been added, you need to reconsider what the impacts are now on how they're using that data. So many tools are integrating AI quietly, stealth adoption, I call it. And obviously the data that you have could actually be very sensitive. So how are we to actually protect ourselves? Obviously, what I've just shown you here shows that there needs to be some form of AI controls. And I consider this very much like brakes on a car. Brakes on a car allows the car to go faster. And obviously, without having brakes, you go very slowly. So therefore, these controls are needed. But obviously, we want to keep the innovation piece there. Those of you, hopefully everyone here is on the CTOCraft Slack channel. This was actually asked about 2 weeks ago. Someone's asked the question of how do I actually protect myself? Someone else answered, so it's very good. Obviously, Chatham House rules, so I don't want to name and shame, but it's very eloquently put. If you don't provide the tools, I'd argue you're increasing your risk of exposure, as the teams will inevitably use them if you don't. So again, we need the AI controls. So how we did this as a business, because we've got 3,000 people, it's incredibly messy to try and put policies in place and not suddenly destroy an entire department's productivity. We created a cross-department AI group. And so therefore, every department and every country is represented. And their responsibilities were updating the policies that were going to be put in place, approved the AI and AI tools that we can actually use, training and education plans, and obviously a centralized knowledge base so everyone can see what you can and can't do. And I'm going to go through why the cross-department piece is so important with these examples. Firstly, we needed an AI usage policy. These things cover the standard, bit dry, legal-heavy policies that are in place, policy statements, risks associated with AI, guidelines for AI usage, responsibilities and related documents like data classification. And a few of our clients have asked for this already, so if any of you like SaaS products or if you are agency like us, you'll probably have a few more clients starting to ask about your AI policy, so it's great to have this document already in place. But the limitations of it are that it's fixed. You don't change it that regularly. And as a quick overview of what I expect to have inside an AI policy, it's important to still allow your teams to use public data almost however they want, obviously instead of a full ban. Obviously, we've still got the ethics overview that's in place, so therefore you shouldn't be doing things that's unethical, which we do define. And obviously, if we just implement a full ban, that stops innovation. It's like, no, you can't use AI tools, then suddenly your team is limited. So this is great, giving a quick overview about confidential data, restricted data, client data, and obviously if our clients say, yeah, we want you to use AI, absolutely fine, fantastic for us. But we found this isn't very useful to internal teams as things change so fast in the industry. We need to be more specific about use cases of how to actually do this and utilize the AI tooling. So we actually generated AI use case examples for all roles in the business. These can change more frequently, so therefore this isn't part of our privacy policy doc that we give out to clients. This is more part of our centralized knowledge base. And it means that when a better tool comes along or privacy conditions change of one of our tools, we can easily switch this in and out. So there's a couple of examples: generating and tuning source code, test cases and other artifacts. It's approved as long as the client confirms and provides the license. And things like interview preparation for like the HR team, summarizing or processing resumes or similar data. They've submitted for a job to us. They haven't given us consent for us to start doing this, to start utilizing AI. And where we are as a business, we don't want to use AI to shortlist or to determine who should and should not be hired in the business. So therefore, we prohibit that. And we have loads of these. So, because it's all centralized, it's easy to look up what to do. Every time that a new member of staff says, I don't know how to achieve this based on the policy, we can then add it to the list and give another example of how to utilize it. Also still highlighting that we still keep clear human accountability on the outputs. So yes, you can use AI in the boundaries that are put in place, but the output, you can't just say, oh, that was terrible, well, AI did it. You're still responsible for the output. You're still responsible for the outcome of what's been done. So it's on the user. If you love ISO, if you love going through processes like this, there are a few out there which is like essentially covering the AI governance blueprint. There's the AI governance risk management. There's the 27001 for the information security, privacy management in AI, and building a culture of compliance with the last one. Very legal heavy, but again, as you are looking through these, if you do want to go through more of these compliance, you still need to think about how you can still enable your teams to do more. And then talking about approved tools. Choices, so many choices. So the cross-department group was so important for us, so we actually had a proactive process so we don't hold up the team. So with the way that we approve the tools, we've got a security review, legal review when we've actually set up what we do. Because we're heavily inside Microsoft, we've accepted Microsoft is just in our system, the way that we work, so therefore we've accepted that as an approved tool, definitely. And a few others where the limitations may apply based on which country that you reside in. And firstly, we want to, so if someone comes along and says, right, I've got this great new tools come out, we want to be using this inside our team. So they go to their group representative. They make sure we clearly can identify what they actually want to try and achieve. Then we actually check whether there's already an existing tool that's been approved that the team could use instead. And if there isn't, Then we go through the legal security requirements check just to make sure that it meets our requirements from data protection, and obviously what data is expected to go in there. And obviously we need to keep an eye out for the free versus enterprise packages. Obviously, if it's free, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product. So therefore, don't expect any real security or privacy around that. But if you are paying for it, it doesn't always mean that the privacy is going to be there. It normally is more heavily on that side, of course. And I want to highlight that we just don't want to deliver garbage faster. I love that phrase. Essentially, when you are looking at optimizing certain things may be old, you no longer need it. And essentially, if you are automating or utilizing better tool sets to allow you to do this, it may be just add more junk to your email list that you constantly get, or adding more complexity. Us as a business, we're lucky. We've got an NVIDIA server on site, so therefore, certain requests that go through, if we can't find what we need on the market, or maybe the pricing's too expensive, we're able to just, have like an API wrapper, have our own guardrails and blocks, check that PII data is not going in before sending it off to an open AI model. So there are different ways around it to try and cut down on costs as well. So let's talk about actual promoting innovation. One of the most interesting things, which I expected, but it's loved to have data for, is inside the survey, we asked the question, what is your current understanding of AI? We weren't testing them, we weren't checking that they actually, it said, what do you believe, how much do you believe that you understand AI? And what is your current excitement about AI? And there's a direct correlation between understanding and excitement, which is really great to see. So the more they feel they understand, the more excited they are about AI and want to use it. So therefore, as we started going for the people that say, I don't understand it at all, they're all like, yeah, it's not going anywhere, I'm not excited about it, it's a fad, it's blockchain, it's virtual reality. But the more that people felt they understood it, the more excited they are. So training is clearly vital for interest. So the more they feel they understand it, the better training we give them, the better they're going to be able to want to be innovative and actually try these tools and see how they can do their job better. So we built training plans per role. Here's just a couple of examples. So all roles in the business were covered, even management. We can't just say management can just get away with anything. We still need to make sure management understands it to also be like representative of how we work as a business. And I wanted to highlight, we didn't actually build our own training materials. We just built the collection of the training materials from publicly available things online. There's so much free and available. And because obviously the industry is moving so fast, it changes so quickly, it's easier to replace an existing training material with something else we found online rather than building our own content. Obviously, if we built our own content, which we do have a team for, it could take 2-3 months, and by the time that's released, it could be completely obsolete. So we find that incredibly useful. And there's a few examples, AI understanding, AI tooling, AI manual testing. We then decide which categorizations go into which roles, so therefore it's very easy to move forward. And obviously we need to incentivize these courses as well so people actually complete them. We have like a badge system, so it's like a badge of honor. There's multiple badges you collect depending on how skilled you are in which technology, which domain, and obviously which training around AI. But obviously there's other benefits that you can run as well. And also to keep aligned with innovation, we need to enable the team to stretch, enable the team to try new things. So R&D and pilot programs are great. I mean, look, we're privileged, we're agency, we have a bit of a bench sometimes, so therefore we're able to have people work on R&D and pilot projects, showcase what they can do, try new things. Obviously, if you've got the budget or the allocation for your team to do that, incredibly valuable. You still want to give some guides of where they should be trying to put their focus, but obviously leave them to it. Hackathons are obviously great. We did one at the end of last year, 32 teams focused on how to make AI work for you to make your job easier and better. We're giving away like scooters, laptops, phones, stuff like that. Really great. Presentations or white papers. I'm a strong believer that if we're paying for someone to be trained in the business, so we're paying for a course or giving them work time, it's their responsibility to then share that knowledge across the whole organization. So therefore, if they are, if they do complete one of these courses, present what their findings are, how they see it, be it in a webinar format, or if they really don't feel comfortable, at least in a white paper, something that can easily be found inside our internal systems. Newsletter updates has actually been even more powerful than I expected. You expect everyone to listen to the same podcasts we do, watch the same news, read the same TechCrunch articles. they don't. Essentially, everyone's got their own little areas that they look at. So therefore, there's a lot of knowledge that you'd expect to just be automatically consumed that isn't. So therefore, internal newsletters around this of not just what you're doing internally, what you've been capable of, which obviously gives a lot of insight into, oh, I could actually use that exact same process for the way I do my stuff inside the business, but also around what's going on inside the industry. You know, some people might not know ChatGPT 4.5 got released. I do love that one, actually. And then there's a centralized knowledge base as well. So people can look up and find the information or any tools, training, R&D projects inside the system and actually find it and understand what they can do, or even get inspiration of how else they could do things in a similar way, but in a different context. So as a way to try and sum everything up, most businesses should have an AI policy in place. If it's not defined, your staff are going to define it for you, and what they think may be acceptable could not be acceptable at all, potentially, in your view. So therefore, this is why our form of AI policy should really be there. And we found the use cases super helpful. Going through the different examples of, if you're a project manager, this is what you can do. If you're a developer, this is what you can do. And obviously keeping that current and up to speed, up to date. A clear process to change acceptable tooling. You know, if we put in a place of only these acceptable tooling for certain use cases can be used, and suddenly a team now has to wait 2-3 months before they can actually utilize a new tool, that's a lot of innovation and time that your team is losing that could easily have been accepted if you're able to move quickly, which is why at least the cross-department group that we had really allowed us to knock this out in like less than a week. Essentially, understand the use case, see how else it might be utilized inside the business, and work that way. And obviously keeping an eye out for red flags outside of confirmed use cases. Once I read the Read AI terms and conditions, it was just like, oh no. So, you know, anything like this, but also we need to be aware that some tools are browser-based, so therefore you may not know they're using it. And things like transcription tools like Limitless, they can record your online video conversation without you knowing. There is no pop-up saying, oh, can we add this transcript? It's just recording directly off the machine, and it's still utilizing AI to summarize, give you tasks. So, you know, you need to be aware that just because you don't see it, these things may still be happening. And of course, continuous education. You know, the more we educate our staff, the more information we give them, the more we allow them to show that they can do this, they can move forward, and you know, try new things to, you know, hopefully give more value to the business. You know, the expectation right now is you do more with less. I can't imagine this going away over the next year. I can only imagine it increasing, and the businesses that aren't innovating and moving forward, trying to optimize the way they work, trying to produce more value on a per employee standpoint, they're going to fall behind and the competitors are going to take over. So that's it. Those of you that want to be going through the process, good luck. It's very eye-opening as you go through it, and I'm open to any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Glyn. Sorry to join you on stage, but I realised we're streaming today, so they couldn't get me on camera down there. But we've got loads of questions for you. Our first one, are there any tools that monitor T's and C's, bar texting you, I guess, now, for changes we might not like?
Not to my knowledge. I mean, we're lucky we've got an internal legal team that like to make life very hard for me. So therefore, they do a lot of this on my behalf, which is fantastic. But yeah, I haven't come across any, but that's a great question and probably something great for the Slack group. If anyone has come across those tools, I'd love to see them as well.
So should AI tools be the responsibility of the CTO, or should they be treated like other software and be the responsibility of the CIO or CISO?
It's shared responsibility in my mind. Essentially, you know, we've got our own security departments, legal departments. Essentially, we have to work together. You know, as CTO, I obviously want to push the boundaries, let my team go faster, do more stuff. What I get measured against and what you guys will be measured against is your output and success of your teams. And just handing it over to someone that all they care about is security risk, and it's like way too risky to use AI. It's more like to be a no rather than being a shared responsibility where we can actually more make it a yes. So therefore, or like maybe some guardrails or some limitations that we can put in place around it. So expectation management of where you can and can't use it is much more valuable than just saying no. So I would say it depends how great a CIO you've got or a Cisco. Essentially, if they are more realistic, then maybe it's not going to be an issue and you don't have to be as close to it. But for me personally, I definitely want to feel confident that the teams can still do more and push forward than a flat we're going to be way too cautious. Obviously, if you're in the encryption space, health tech space, you need to be that type of hard line of where you definitely cannot cross. But if you're in a startup mode, people are normally more flexible and obviously trying to push further because the value you get back could be much higher. And like we saw from the previous conversation about bad actors, or not even bad actors, people willing just to push the boundaries more than what they should do. That's sort of where innovation happens. So just, it's finding the right balance for you as a business.
Next one, I think we've all had this one at some point. It's moving. I'll do the top one. What are your favorite AI tools as a CTO?
Right now, I don't code in my job. I haven't done for about 10 years, but I love Cursor. In my free time, I'm using Cursor, and I haven't got to vibe coding yet. Those that don't know what that is, please look it up. It's great. It's just where you purely use prompting to help build it. I can't get my head around that level. I still feel I need to build the framework of the code and just use the autocomplete functions and stuff there. But that's a fantastic tool for copilots. I do actually quite like Microsoft Copilot. When I first used it, essentially, I'd literally taken a week off work on holiday, came back, and just asked it the question, what do I need to be aware of that happened last week? And it came down with this list of 20 things. I then did a manual comparison with my emails, with my Teams chats, and it was spot on. It identified everything that I need to pay attention to. So those are probably my two most favorite tools that I use on a more regular basis. Obviously, there's so many tools out there and they're constantly switching. So therefore, it's really hard. Things change very quickly.
Cool. So this one, are you worried about IP violation? For example, shipping AI-generated code or content that is a direct lift of proprietary code or content that the model was trained on?
So because I'm agency, I don't need to worry as much. Essentially, the clients decide. So it's brilliant. I've passed on responsibility. If the clients want us to use Copilots or Cursor, these tools on their code bases, they have to give us written consent or give us the license for our teams to use that. So I'm in a privileged position where I care less about that, which is wonderful. Obviously, for you guys, you do need to care more. As with any code generation tool, the responsibility still needs to be on the developer. We're not just saying, just keep on pressing tab and these Copilots just going to build out your code base and it works so fine. So the risk level, look, the EU and the UK, we are much more data sensitive, we're much more regulatory. So there's definitely more of a concern on this side of the water. Obviously the US are less so right now with the way politics is going. So I'd say you should be a little bit worried about it. Strong code review process, hopefully would identify concerns around this. But yeah, it's not an area I need to personally care about right now, I'm afraid. But I'm sure many of you do.
Time for a few more. In which areas of your business do you see the greatest positive impact of AI tooling?
So operations is a big one. Traditionally, they do things very manually, Google spreadsheets. So any department that's using spreadsheets as a way of doing their work is a clear process that you could easily be improved and automated. And the way developers work as well. Obviously, like I say, Copilots are incredibly fast. Like last year, I think when I was giving a presentation, maybe like a year and a half ago, we were looking at about 20-30% improvement. We're seeing that starting to get a lot faster. So obviously big improvements from code, but again, you need to think about the whole SDLC lifecycle. You can't just expect one part of your business to start really improving productivity-wise and none of the other parts of the business moving alongside. So in a team, if your developers are working 2-3 times faster and your PMs can't keep up, your DevOps and QA can't keep up, it's wasted because they're just gonna, you're not gonna be able to still deliver as fast. But inside the business side, it's sort of dispersed. We're seeing like across all levels, there's areas that we can improve and the way that we do things, as long as obviously we've got the guidelines in place to make sure that we're not crossing a line we shouldn't be.
Cool, the next one, understanding versus excitement. Is that Dunning-Kruger correlation? The more they think they understand, the more excited. Learn more, aware you know less excited.
Yeah, look, I did consider this. This is why I wanted to highlight that. We didn't test them. We said, what do you believe your understanding is? And yeah, obviously that does line up. Everybody probably's got that lead engineer that goes, Copilot's rubbish. I can code faster than the Copilots. And that mindset does exist. It's a different way of thinking, different way of working. Just like I said, right now I'm trying to get into vibe coding in my free time. I can't get my head into it yet because of the history of the way I coded back in my day. So there are certain things you look at and you get more pushback. Again, you don't need to know how to build models. You don't need to know how to build LLMs or train LLMs. You know, it's like a tractor. You know, I can drive a tractor and do a lot of value with the way I plow fields. I don't need to know how the tractor's built. So it's about how you use these things and what the benefits are to you, I find. There's a lot of areas there. Obviously not negating the value of the highly qualified PhD, AI data scientists out there, but how we do it is very different. So, so for me, I don't see that. I see a few cases where people get concerned they get trained too much, and they go, okay, this is actually not a good thing for me to be using. But most of the cases, it's a positive impact.
Good stuff. Glyn, we're out of time, but plenty more questions on the screen there. But give Glyn a big
thank you very much.
Thanks.